I think makes a lot of sense. And I'd love to see them round things out with the Casio, and it would give them a pretty solid composition overall.
Yeah, protect the carries, and they just need one more carry to make it happen. So what will be CozQ's pickup? He really wanted that Katarina, and we're going to get it. Oh, I mean, the Monkeys, they can play spoiler to Splyce here. They don't need to worry about their spot in promotions or anything since it's already locked in.
Oh, a CozQ special. One of the champions that he used to qualify for the LCS was this Katarina. It's something that he's even had banned away from him by many teams in the LCS, and it is something that he personally absolutely loves to play, and I love to cast Pyra. Katarina is my favorite champion in the game. So much to say about her when we get into the game. But looking overall at the compositions, I think that it is a very risky pick. By picking up the teleport, you have the option to play along the side lanes. I think it can do fine into the Taliyah, but wave clear and team fighting, very difficult to execute. And things like Exhaust shut her down extremely hard. So you have to be careful. I feel like the Mysterious Monkeys, they're gambling. They're running a little bit of a risk with this Katarina pick in the mid lane. But overall, very strong team fighting and a great opportunity to make things happen across the map with the double TP that they're running.
Yeah, they're able to match a lot of the side pressure that Splyce can bring. And remember, this is no joke for Splyce. They need to get as many points and as many wins on the board as possible. Obviously, for the team, things have been shaken up just a little bit. They parted ways with their coach prior to this week. Manager Hans is the one who's on stage for this game, so you have to expect a little bit of uncertainty possibly out of the Splyce side.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Splyce can do. They've drafted a little bit more of a 1-3-1, but they still have the room for team fighting, which is very much what the meta is all about. And I'm excited to see these two teams clash, and there's so much to talk about during the laning phase, a lot of things to break down. I think we're in for a pretty exciting matchup.
Oh, there definitely will be blood. The Monkeys just looking to play spoiler up against the Snakes of Splyce. We'll see if we get some crazy action, kick things off in that mid lane or anywhere on the map. Protect the carries and some snowballing assassins thrown into the mix. We got a Lover's bot lane with Kobbe and Mikyx. Splyce playing what is right inside their comfort zone. And will it be enough to take down the Mysterious Monkeys, or will they fall to the snowballing pressure? We are about to find out. Let's load up onto Summoner's Rift.
So I want to start off by talking a little bit about the Mysterious Monkeys, largely because they are sitting at the bottom of Group B, Pyro. They are locked in for the promotion tournament. Things are a little rough for them, and right now they're playing for more experience, as much practice as possible. They can find stuff that works, and their whole goal now is to win through the promotion tournament, where they will be playing against Giants or the winner of Schalke versus Red Bulls, which will be happening this Sunday. So they want to get as much experience as they can, and by bringing out the Katarina, they're definitely going back to comfort. But you have to look at things like win conditions. How are Mysterious Monkeys going to try and win this game? Because the big thing is, you want the Katarina to snowball, right? That's very much what Katarina is all about. She does pretty well during the laning phase, but she also actually has pretty good scaling. She does a lot of damage, her ratios are insanely high. She just gets harder to play in the late game because she literally jumps in and stands still, Pyra, which is not ideal, but it does mean that it requires a lot of execution and a lot of setup. So ideally, you want to be playing towards this Katarina, and if you can get her moving around the map, that's the best early game that Mysterious Monkeys can try and set themselves up for.
Right, and it's not like Splyce have completely gone all in on defending against that Katarina. You mentioned Exhaust being the thing that shuts her down. Well, it is only a single Exhaust. Mikyx is the one that has it. Sencux has opted instead for the barrier to keep himself alive a little longer. We'll see if that ends up working for him. Do you think that's the optimal choice?
I think that it's fine into this matchup because usually you'd want double exhaust if there were maybe a carry top laner, right? So if there was something, let's say, like a Kled or a Camille, then you'd want to consider running the double exhaust so that you make sure you always have one for the Katarina. But in this instance, all Mickey has to do is make sure he saves his for the cat, because it's really hard to land it onto Yuki anyway, and the barrier will just help you during the laning phase and will mitigate a lot of the all-in power that Katarina does have early on. So we do see a bit of an early gank here.
Yeah, that's a level 2, forcing the immediate flash out of CozQ, and he's backed away, but, well, looks like we won't have any time to settle right now because Kobbe's being fired down by Yuki very early on this Tristana, trading out well with the explosive charge, even manages to get a Winter's Bite stun out of the support.
So a lot of cool stuff just happened right there. Level 2 gank from Trashy in the mid lane. One of the weakest points of Katarina throughout the game is her level 1 to 3. Largely because the Shunpo cooldown, even though if you grab yourself a dagger, you still have about 3.5 seconds where your Shunpo comes off cooldown. So there's actually a pretty big window that you can punish if she ever tries to play aggressively, which means that champions like Taliyah can just keep pushing her in, force her under tower, poke her a lot, and force her to lose out on the farm. And by getting an early gank in, that makes it even rougher because you've already had to burn your health pot, and now you're going to have to deal with all this additional poke that's coming out from Sencux, whose goal is to just keep pushing you in and keep stopping you from getting your goal, getting a farm, and really denying that gunblade as long as possible.
Right, and whenever you have one of these like crazy snowballing win conditions, right, it seems very logical that the enemy team, their win condition is stopping that from happening. So it's already a good start out for Splyce, and you know, they clearly aren't a team that is super comfortable with big, long, extended team fights, so it seems like this is optimal for them.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, Pyra, because one of the things about Splyce is that when you think back to when they had the most success in Europe, it was actually when they were playing things like 1-3-1, when they were playing 1-4, when they were actually playing more towards side lanes than grouping up and fighting as a 5v5. Because when you look at players like Kobbe and Wunder, these guys were actually really good at building their own lane advantages, and it's plays like this that got them.
Yes, indeed. Kobbe is the target right now, and he's trying to dodge out from those feathers, but it's just not going to be enough. The deadly plumage is making them rethink things, and, well, not for nothing that Yuki had a pretty solid performance in the previous week. I mean, he liked to go aggressive, he liked to set up plays, and it seemed to work out for him.
So far, things are going pretty well in this 2 versus 2. And to just backtrack a little bit, yeah, because focusing in on Yuki, you can see that this guy, he really had a solid performance up against the Unicorns of Love. The fact is, the team played a lot more towards him. They utilized the Shen in game 2. They set him up for success in the early game, and we saw a lot of success from the team overall. And while they still do take a couple of risky fights, Yuki has been one of the better performers for Mysterious Monkeys throughout the split as they go in for another all-in.
One more time, instant exhaust. A lot of flashes burned here as Amazing is looking to come in. Heal even popped, and those birds are on the run. They're able to get back to the safety of the tower, but Mysterious Monkeys not letting up the pressure even for an instant in this bottom lane.
And you're starting to see why Tristana is considered so much more of a higher to AD carry now in the current meta. She trades extremely well, she has a surprising amount of mobility, and her all-in potential is actually extremely strong, especially when you bring a jungler like a Maokai into the lane, as we now see another gank happening in mid.
Yeah, this time CozQ, he's going to get seismically shoved back in, and a flag and drag from Trashy means this will surely be first blood, picked up by Sencux.
Fantastic knockback there from Sencux. Remember that the flash was already burned earlier on from Trashy. I love the return gank into the middle lane to deny this Katarina's laning phase. This is the risk that you run. We talked about it, Pyra. These early few levels are really when Katarina is weak. She doesn't have many points in her Shunpo. She doesn't get the same sort of mobility that she does later on into the game. And they're doing their best to shut her down as early on as they can.
Yeah, it's certainly working out, and it's going to help build Splyce's gold lead for the time being, just at 500 off that first blood that the Taliyah has. But it seems like for the Monkeys, at what point do they need to start giving relief to this lane, or do they just focus their attention on the bottom where Yuki is?
For the Mysterious Monkeys, I think they're fine investing more pressure into the bottom side of the map. Remember that Katarina isn't your only win condition. You still have this Tristana who's going to scale very nicely into the game. You have this huge late game threat. And if all of Splyce are focused on trying to kill the Katarina, oh, well, look, now there's no Jarvan ultimate for the Tristana. Oh, look, there's no Rakan ultimate for the Tristana. Because they've all been used to try and stop CozQ from killing my backline. And if he has a Gunblade and a Xayah's, he will kill your backline, even if he is behind. So Splyce's focus is just to make sure that he isn't a threat when they do start forcing these fights, but also to make sure that he's not a side lane threat, so that Sencux can always have priority if they decide to set up for the 1-3.
Right, and building those leads early seems to be pretty critical to the Splyce success. And you know, you mentioned earlier on about how when Splyce was kind of having one of their more impressive runs in summer of last year, they were fighting, but more often than not, they were forcing attention on the side lanes, getting themselves leads in objectives, small skirmishes, things like that. And then when they would fight, well, it wouldn't really matter if they weren't in the best position to do it because they had a massive golden item lead.
Yes, that is exactly right. As we discussed earlier, very much the old identity of Splyce, and I feel like that as a team, that team fighting is not that of the strongest, right? Like, especially when you look back at their recent weeks against H2K, they really didn't look very coordinated as a 5v5 team. A lot of their engages were off the mark. Their vision setups and decision-making when to actually force the fights were a little haphazard. And overall, I think that they are a weak team-fighting team. So I would like to see some kind of development in that area, especially when the meta is so focused on actually forcing these 5v5 fights. Because it doesn't matter how much you play side lanes, if you cannot stop that 4-5-man unit of the enemy team, just running it down mid and forcing an engage, then you're going to have some really rough times.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that, if that was the strategy to just try to get good at team fighting, or if they can still play around it. I feel like against some teams like the Mysterious Monkeys, they might be able to just build up big advantages and you know, avoid fair fights, but...
Well, so far, they're not building massive advantages.
It's
right?
not huge.
Even in the top lane, Gnar versus Shen, typically what you'd expect of the Gnar is just constant harassment with the range advantage that he has. Always forcing the Shen into tower with the risk of being dived. Kikis is going even. He's doing just fine. And overall, the Mysterious Monkeys, they're holding on to a very solid laning phase, aside from the Katarina, who's falling a little bit behind him.
Risk of dives on both sides, actually, as laners back away. You could see the Xayah Rakan had already moved off. Kobbe and Mikyx not taking any chances there. But it is a race for first tower. Blood Wunder is about to hit that Mega Gnar, but unfortunately, they've run plumb out of minions. And because Mysterious Monkeys have brought a little bit more friends to the party here, they should be able to finish it with that wrecking ball that Tristana can consistently deliver. And there it goes, first tower blood to the Monkeys.
Interestingly, the Splyce's bottom lane has actually made their way mid, rather than trying to move up to the top side or answer the wave down bottom. So you now have a 3, maybe even 4-man unit of Splyce trying to pressure onto this Katarina. Remember, her wave clear is rather weak, and at this point in the game, she has no real kill threat or CC to scare off Splyce. So they're taking advantage of how weak this Katarina is in the early game to get a bit of extra damage down onto this tower.
A little cheeky move there by Mikyx to stop the Dreams back. Still, he's able to send out a Winter's Bite and stop it from all happening. You can see focus for the teams, of course, has been on different sides of the map. Splyce, they had all their vision invested up towards the top side, looking to try and make that dive earlier on. Meanwhile, Mysterious Monkeys were doing the same on the bottom.
You know, we've talked a lot about CozQ. Let's take this opportunity to talk a little bit about Sencux, because as a player, he's kind of been, well, average. Not many people have thought a huge amount about him in last splits. He was obviously one of the big deficits, right? We always criticized him for being negative in farm. He was always one of the hindrances of the team. He was someone that you actually couldn't rely on to win lane. But right now, he's actually ranked 4th among mid laners. He's actually going pretty even, pretty consistently, and in this instance is even going ahead. So it's nice to see that he has developed a lot as a mid laner, and he has grown as a player, because compared to what we considered of him in the past, he is definitely one of the individuals on Splyce that has shown progression from spring to summer.
You're absolutely right. Like, Splyce as a team, it seems like you normally are thinking about the team as a whole and you're trying to feel like what makes them stand out. And more often than not, it is really hard to find an answer to that. But they do have some star performers that have been stepping up over the last couple years. Sencux is certainly one of them. I feel like Kobbe is definitely another, but it's hard for him to show it right now in this matchup versus Yuki. Speaking of, Yuki taking a step forward, looking for Sencux. There was the Shunpo, the daggers, but he's able to burn Flash and Barrier. It does open up a moment, though, for Trashy, Mikyx, and Kobbe to get themselves on top of the Rift Herald. See if they can finish it. And
there is no vision in that river from the side of the Mysterious Monkeys, but the wall is coming out from Sencux to try and deny a possible contest. And Splyce are able to secure that. Really like that setup from Splyce. This will now better set them up for taking down either that mid-tier 1 or the bottom tier 1 should they want to make their way down there and continue to try and punish this Katarina in the early game.
Trying to build up enough of a bubble. It's not a lot in gold right now, but Splyce, they have that Rift Herald to see if they can keep shoving it in the mid lane. They do have pressure, of course, on the top side, but there are several Mysterious Monkeys now nearby. Now CozQ, he might be in trouble. It flashes away from the Rakambo. Mikyx not able to make that one land right now, but the rest of Splyce, they're occupied in the mid, and they should be able to push this one out. No Jarvan here, though.
Now, I think this is a poor lane assignment for the Mysterious Monkeys, because they should know full well that Katarina cannot hold this mid tower. Tristana should have been the one to come mid, and they should have sent Katarina up top because of the TP that CozQ does have available to him. Now, Splyce, they didn't want to risk committing because they actually don't see in the river, so the possibility of a flank was fairly high. Therefore, they decide to disengage. They won't be able to get it down for now, and I wonder if Mysterious Monkeys can answer as they have a minion wave building up in mid.
Looking to push themselves forward. That tower gold not quite collected on, and meanwhile, the Mysterious Monkeys, 2 of them at least, occupied on the Cloud Drake. And, you know, I didn't mention this earlier on, Vedius, but I think looking at the way that the Monkeys actually ended up drafting this game is already some growth and evolution from this team. It seemed like for a while they kind of had a game plan in mind and then would just pick something completely off the wall for Kikis, for instance, and it would all kind of fall apart with what their composition was trying to do. This seems pretty clear-cut.
Yeah, I mean, they did do this in Game 2 versus the Unicorns of Love, and that was the composition that they won with. And it was the one that I think showed the most promise, and it also backtracks to what we were talking about earlier on, which is when Mysterious Monkeys as a team have a very clear win condition that they can play towards, that actually seems to help them a lot, because everyone seems to be on the same page. They all know what their goals are. They all know what they need to do. But then when Kikis drafts these slightly off champions, the win condition effectively becomes make sure Kikis can win side lane. So amazing gang stop all the time, he tries to start the snowball, and if he gets it, sure, but then the rest of the team don't really have a clear idea of what they should be doing, and it just feels disjointed. Yeah. So when he plays things like Shen, he's able to have a lot more pressure and able to join the rest of his team, and they just have a lot more success overall. Not
only that, he tends to at the very least go even the lane anyway, so it's not like you have to stick the guy on a carry. He's usually able to match up against something even like Wunder's Gnar. Now with the Rift Herald popped out for Splyce, they're able to knock that one down in top, but Mysterious Monkey's not too far behind. They're trying to wreck down this tower themselves, but Amazing is already backing. Kikis is trying to defend, and it does seem to be a game of tower trading for the time being. Let's see what Kikis can do. He's got to be careful not to take too much damage from those feathers. Gets a taunt off though. Rakan, or excuse me, Jarvan taking a lot of damage off that tower. Now CozQ has come to provide some relief effort here. They should be able to finish the crab off, but it still took a bite out of that tower's health bar.
And I don't think Mysterious Monkey will even be able to get this top tower. We just need to check how much HP it's on. And with Gnar here, I think that they're more than capable of defending it. So really good play there from Splyce. Mysterious Monkey's, again, a little bit slow on reacting, but also it's extremely difficult when you're going up against a Rift Herald. It just naturally gives you that tempo advantage. And because Amazing was forced to come back to stop the Rift Herald from continuing the push all the way up to something like an inhibitor tower, Mysterious Monkeys, they get slowed down, and now Splyce, they've built themselves up a pretty significant early lead. And remember, this is what they were known for back when they had the most success, back in summer of last year, and a little bit in spring, where they get these early lane advantages, not through kills, not through early ganks, not through snowballs, but just small leads through towers and CS advantages. And then because of those small leads, they have stronger side lanes, and then because they can play all three side lanes, then that's where you actually start to see a very strong Splyce. And so they put themselves in this situation now. So let's see where Splyce transition, as I expect them to start moving across all three lanes.
Yeah, that's the critical thing here. So Rift Herald, of course, already spent. Checking in with some of those items, too. Sencux had that first item, Banshee's Veil. After, of course, he picked himself up some Merc Treads, wanting to make sure he could get out of harm's way in any situation. Wunder, with that Black Cleaver, should be able to shred through some armor. But we're still waiting to see Kobbe finish off his first item since he opted for the early Zerkers. They're building not necessarily for lane dominance because the lane kind of ended, obviously. So they're getting themselves items slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely, indeed. You can see the Gunblade well on its way from CozQ. Just looking across the board, Sencux going for a very early Banshee's Veil along with triple Merc Treads. Usually you see a lot of armor boots, but they're saying, you know what, CozQ? No, you will not be building. I don't care how much damage you have, we're going to have some magic resistance to compensate for that. Which means that, ooh, CozQ, I feel like he has to go for Zhonya second, but if he's feeling ambitious, he might go for a Void Staff second. So we'll keep an eye on his itemization. Depends what his goals are moving forward in the next couple of minutes.
I think it's get into the back line and delete the carries.
Super hard, though, against the Xayah.
Yeah, and the Taliyah. I mean, there's a lot of mobility, a lot of slipperiness on this Splyce side. It seems like CozQ's really set himself a challenge, but he's never been a player to really shy away from a good challenge. Not always to his benefit. Now Trashy looks to go in onto Kikis. Teleport coming on that last minion here. Let's see if they can make the play happen. Kikis a little bit low, and the teleport was going to dissuade any further action, but CozQ immediately shun-po'd back to Kikis.
So Splyce, they tried to set a collapse up down onto Kikis. They had Kobbe and Mikyx on their way as well. They'd already pushed out mid, so they knew that they would have the pressure advantage, but they were not quite able to get a kill. They do get the TP out from CozQ though, so I'd love to see Sencux now move off to a side lane, have the TP that you have on Wunder, to try and put a bit of pressure down in the bottom lane. But Infernal Drake going to be spawning around a minute 30, and I feel like that'll be the next big objective that both these teams try to play around.
Remember, the Monkeys got the last dragon because they had the pressure advantage in the mid lane, so weren't able to knock down that tower entirely, but if they can contest this, that Infernal Drake can be very, very useful to a team that has some explosive damage in the form of Yuki and eventually CozQ. See if he's able to get it done. Of course, Yuki, he already has his Infinity Edge completed a little bit later than he may have liked it, but he's still going to have a lot of power in these team fights. And it seems like the Monkeys want to start forcing that.
So now they are making their way over to the blue buff. They're in a position to try and contest because they just saw Splyce actually moving back, and this allows them to get a lot of vision around Dragon. I feel like a big fight is on its way soon.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what the Monkeys want, right? See if they can give themselves an opportunity to even out some of this gold a little bit more and, you know, force Splyce to play on an even level that they wouldn't be comfortable with.
Yeah, because you have to remember that for Mysterious Monkeys, one of their big win conditions is actually getting this big 5v5 fight, right? Like, they have the Maokai to catch someone out of position like they're doing right now.
Knock back, okay. I didn't want to go and fully commit to that one. It seems like Splyce was ready. Now remember, Wunder is up on the top. He has Gnar. He could teleport in, but it wouldn't be the most effective. Meanwhile, Kikis can provide some protection wherever he needs to be, but it looks like the fight may end up being in the mid lane. Sapling toss, just scouting out. See if they can get this chase on. No, they're not going to commit to it fully. Very difficult to break through this line, but there's the charm combo right now. They turn it in, that's a lot of damage. Looking for CozQ as Amazing Zolt comes out. Trashy narrowly avoiding death, or does he? Because CozQ is going to be able to throw one more dagger into his back. Teleports canceled at the end of it all. A double taunt. Kikis goes in for round 2 right now. Looking for the birds. Can they get the feathers? Yuki gets one. Hopping over looking for Sencux right now. Can he make the fight happen? CozQ incredibly low. And Kobbe flashing forward with the plumage. He's going to be able to pull those feathers out for a kill onto CozQ. Wunder hopping. Not going to be enough for now, and there's no tower. Kikis goes in one more time. He thinks he can delete Sencux, but he gets shoved back, and that's a double kill for the AD carry from Splyce.
What a crazy fight happening between both teams. Looking really good for Mysterious Monkeys at the start. They overcommit just a little bit, and then Splyce end up turning it in their favor, but I feel like this is a really good illustration of why Splyce are not the strongest team fighting team, because the way in which they set up that play just felt so uncoordinated. They were not working together to make the play happen. The TP did not seem in time. The Mega Gnar had just disappeared. They didn't respect the Shen ulti either. So let's just have a look exactly how this is set up, right? So you have Gnar in the top lane. Doesn't have Mega Gnar, is not TPing. They're forcing the 5v5. Super easy for the Shen to just come in, provide the shielding for CozQ just at the right time, and then they turn the fight in their favor. Now at this point, you should disengage. They tried to keep going because they know that the TP is unavailable. They get themselves an extra kill onto Mikyx, and you think, okay, this is looking good. But now, Mysterious Monkeys, they think they're a little bit stronger than they actually are. They have to remember that they're in the gold deficit. Kobbe has more HP. Wunder's making his way over. And Mysterious Monkeys should have just been happy with the teamfight advantage that they got, but every time, Mysterious Monkeys, they always go back in. They always get that bit of bloodthirstiness in their eyes, and it ends up in a fight actually going in favor of Splyce, when in reality it really shouldn't have.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to highlight it's not just the weakness of Splyce, the same for Mysterious Monkeys, as you were saying. And I feel like it won't be the last time that happens in this game. No. But at the end of the day, Splyce did win the fight. They got the spoils, which in this case was the Infernal Dragon, and they're able to keep padding that gold lead. So this does look good for Splyce, but I think they're going to be wanting to avoid some of those straight-up 5v5s and may not be going in with the Rakambo again.
The thing you have to remember is that this teamfight comp is good when Splyce are the ones initiating, right? Hang on,
not this time, it would be. Dreams jumped in, so did CozQ. There's a hop over from Yuki. No, they're just going to push him back. That's it.
So when you engage onto a cat, it's so much harder for her to reposition in a fight because she almost always has to use a Shimpo defensively rather than aggressively. She wants to be following up on the engagements. So when Splyce make fights like that happen, it's actually a best case scenario because you saw how low CozQ got and how very nearly they were actually able to shut him out of the fight completely. And if that Gnar was slightly better coordinated with his TP, or at the very least he stopped the Shen joining the fight, it could have gone much better for Splyce. But to me, it just felt like they saw an opportunity, they went for the play, and the rest of the team tried to follow up, but because everyone wasn't quite on the right page, it didn't quite go the way they wanted. But now that they were able to win it, and they still have the gold lead, I want to see them playing the 1-3-1. I want to see them playing the rest of the map, because with the Katarina, it's super hard for Mysterious Monkeys to reliably force fights onto a Taliyah, onto a Xayah, onto the Rakan, because of the slipperiness that they do have inside their kit. I do not want to see Splyce grouping up. I think that they should just have superior vision, move around the map, and when Mysterious Monkeys are in an awkward spot, either try and find a pick, or try and force the Baron while Monkeys have no vision of it.
This series in general should just be a pretty good proving ground to see if Splyce can actually follow that execution. We have talked at length about their inconsistencies, but if you can't do it against the Mysterious Monkeys, team in the bottom of the group, you might be in a little bit of trouble for playoffs. Remember, they do need the wins to try and make them, or to try and get themselves in a solid playoff position, try to contest for that first step.
Now you can see, look, Splyce is setting up for the 1-3-1. You have Gnar in the bottom lane. Sencux has just pushed up top. He is sitting on the top side because it's so much easier for him to use his wall to get closer. And they're just slowly whittling down because Kikis cannot hold his own in this 1v1 anymore. This is exactly what I want to see from Splyce. This is where they had the majority of their success in the past. And all you need now is the 3 members of Kobbe, Trashy, and Mikyx to just hold on into this mid lane with the occasional movement from Sencux.
All right, if Splyce are able to execute this well, they can definitely start knocking down a lot more of them. But what can the Monkeys do to respond? Do they just need to group mid and try to run it down?
It's super difficult for them to actually force the fight. What they really need to do is reclaim some of the vision back around the Baron, and they need to make an actual threat towards this objective. They need to say, you're at a real risk of losing this objective if you do not come and fight us. And by drawing all 5 members of Splyce in, that is when Mysterious Monkeys can actually get a fight going in their favor. If they don't try and force something soon, they're eventually just going to lose their base to Wunder gradually whittling down all these towns.
Now we'll see if the decision-making is going to be there. Mysterious Monkeys, of course, this is their first split in the LCS. The veterans of Amazing and Kikis didn't join until cross-group play happened in Week 4. And there have definitely been a lot of stumbling blocks for this team. But in a way, feels like you don't have to worry too much, even if you do not have the greatest showing once you're locked in for that promotion tournament. You can use this time for the practice that it is going to be. Let's see if they can make that happen, if they can pressure around a big objective like the Baron. 23 minutes still on the clock right now, and the gold lead isn't massive in favor of Splyce. Despite the fact that they have double the towers that Mysterious Monkeys do, it's still only about 1,500 in their favor.
Credit where credit is due. Mysterious Monkeys, they've still done well at making sure the farm gets onto the right people. CozQ has been keeping up with Sencux. You can actually see Yuki's built up a decent lead over Kobbe. And in terms of just their lane matchups, they're doing pretty damn well, especially Kikis, who you'd expect a much larger deficit up against Gnar. He's really done a good job of holding his own.
Yeah, and that's the Kikis effect, right? Like, the guy, in a lot of ways, he can lane into a lot of bad matchups and still do well. He obviously plays a lot of really weird matchups that throw people off, but this does seem like the identity that Monkeys have started to carve out for themselves and found some levels of success. Shen ult so far have been on point. Let's see if it continues. He's going to be hard to tear through. Titanic Hydra, of course, he's got the Bramble Vest as well. Big amount of armor for Wunder to deal with.
All right, so top lane is very steadily slow pushing in Splyce's favor. You can see them now grouping up around the Dragon. This is going to be the big point of contention, and this could work very nicely for Mysterious Monkeys because you want them to group so that you can try and force a fight. But Splyce still have this pressure top side, they have pressure bot. As long as Splyce can get priority mid, they're actually in the much better position to be able to contest this Drake without losing anything in return.
Yeah, it's kind of a dance back and forth right now between the Dragon and the mid tower. Now, looks like Mysterious Monkeys are going to be favoring that Infernal Drake. They really need to grab this one if they want to try and keep those fights going, but they're in danger of getting flanked. But CozQ, he's got the Shen shield on. Mikyx going in for the big charm. Kobbe on the backside, trying to make all the damage happen. There go the roots. Coming out, but Trashy's the first casualty of the fight as Yuki gets one kill. The Dragon not even aggroed in this one, but the Monkeys are starting to drop. It's a double kill for Wunder. Dreams caught in the pit, can't get away. Amazing flashing, but he's followed by the birds, and there is nowhere for him to go. He is rooted down like the tree he is, and Amazing's gonna fall. Mikyx with the kill credit, and just like that, it's a 1 for 4.
And it was Mysterious Monkeys trying to force the fight. This was the situation that they were trying to set up for so long, and they thought that with Sencux not in a position to really get involved, they could snowball this, get themselves a very quick pick, turn this into a 5v4, and then all of a sudden they've won the fight. But Splyce were able to buy time. They were able to disengage. Mysterious Monkeys didn't quite have the damage, and that means that Splyce got themselves the turnaround. They win themselves the fight. Now they're going to start off the Baron.
Should be able to finish this one. It's still 9 seconds until Amazing is going to respawn, but there are teleports coming. Let's see if Mysterious Monkeys can back them off. It's a 4-man Baron attempt right now. Make that 5 because they're going to actually turn the fight now on to Trashy looking for CozQ. As I said, Trashy not even in this one yet. Kikis gets a taunt off. Can he get away? Dreams jumping right in front of him, so that's one more quick pick. Taking down Splyce. They have 8 kills now in this game, and double Infernal. They're certainly not looking too shabby in terms of damage.
So CozQ, he gives his life for the cause. Splyce, they do not complete the Baron, but they still have 2 Infernal Drakes under the belt. They still have the 4,000 goal lead, and even though they don't get that objective, I think they can still be pretty happy overall.
Yeah, I want to go back to this Dragon fight because it did seem like before they had those big objectives, they made it work.
So you can see CozQ, he tries to engage onto Wunder and Trashy because he sees that, oh, Kobbe's really off on the side lane, not doing a huge amount. They shut down Trashy really quickly. But then a great ulti from Wunder locks up Yuki into the wall. He gets the follow-up stun too. And then Kobbe, with no real threat to him on the back line, is able to just melt through the lineup of the Mysterious Monkeys. And sure, it is something that you want to be doing if you're the Monkeys. You want to be the ones engaging on that fight. But they were trying to fight it on 2 different sides, where CozQ was fighting off to the right, and Amazing and the lot were fighting off onto the left. And really want to be going in together rather than separated. And that resulted in Kobbe still having all the freedom to do all this damage. And as you saw, he really did do a lot of damage.
I mean, it just highlights what he can get done when he has the good positioning. They talked about him being criticized pretty heavily last week and not deserving it. Well, when he's in the right place at the right time, they can make it happen. Amazing getting seismically shoved back, but he's tanking up to survive it all. Just a couple of love taps. And it seems like Splyce, they have themselves one of those more comfortable leads now, not just in the gold, but mostly in the fact that they've got 2 Infernal Dragons to help back up and supplement that damage. But before that even happened, Splyce were able to get the big fight for themselves. And that seems like growth from this team.
Well, they have a pretty healthy lead right now. They are much happier trying to force a fight now compared to any other situation. Especially when you look at some of the spikes have been hit. Sencux.
There's the wall, but it's just going to push Mysterious Monkeys on the other side. Amazing, unfortunately, is on the wrong side of this one, and there is nowhere for him to go. Trying to get over, but he's not going to be able to do it. It's Kobbe who gets the death blow. Coming up pretty big right now on this Xayah, but Mikyx wants to turn it back in. He goes in for the charm. There's a flash out by Sencux, and they're going to try to split it off. CozQ, he was locked in the pit as he tried to go Death Lotus. He didn't have the damage. Featherstorm comes out. Kobbe doesn't have the E to pull those right back to him. Looks like Kikis is going to try and fancy his chances to go back in again, but there's no opening. The Monkeys, unfortunately, are stymied in this fight again. Big
mistake there from Sencux, face-checking that brush to give Kikis the taunt. He got extremely low and was close enough to giving CozQ some kind of a reset, which really could have ended in disaster for Splyce. Fortunately for them, he is able to get away, but you also have to recognize that if you're Splyce, Yuki does a lot of damage at this point in the game. He's hit the 3-item spike, he's still a Tristana, he has the attack speed steroid. If you get caught, like he will melt you.
Yep, Blast Cone Express, that doesn't matter, there's a rocket jump in Yuki. Oh, that just might be Baron attempt.
And this is what we talked about, you gotta respect the damage. The pick power of Braum and Trist is actually pretty big. And while their Baron taking power is not the fastest, they may very well try and force this objective as they start grouping up.
All right, Trashy would need to be the hero with the steal on this one unless they can force Mysterious Monkeys to back off. With that Tristana, they're starting to push this one through. Trashy, no flash, but he does have the smite, and they're just going to be walking in the front of the pit. Try and force CozQ back here. Throws down the landmines, and now there's the roots coming out. It's going to just land onto one, and they're right back to the Baron. Hasn't reset yet, but this is going to be the big one. Mikyx, he looks to go in. He gets a couple, but is it going to be enough? The damage following up is just not there right now. Mikyx has to turn and run right on out. Trashy flag is back. Look for Yuki. He's pushed back. The heal's already burned. Exhausted to CozQ. Down he goes as Kobbe is unstoppable this game, and they come right into the pit. Push the Monkeys out. Thank you very much. We will take your Baron.
Splyce play that Baron play beautifully. They don't hard commit. They even get a kill on the way out as Wunder teleports in, and everything goes back in the favor of Splyce.
But this is such a big contrast to Splyce's team fighting that we have been talking about. Yes, they have big leads. Yes, they've been growing, but they were getting here through team fights. They built these leads up just through being able to outfight the Monkeys.
Very impressive so far with what Splyce have been able to do. Really want to go back and see that Baron fight because the positioning that Splyce took in that was very, very impressive. Notice how they never really hard committed towards going for the Baron. They knew Mysterious Monkeys, they couldn't take this fast. Like, Katarina's not doing any damage in this fight, right? And so Mickey, he goes in, he tries to buy a little time. They're just waiting for the teleport available. Sencux throwing Pope down from the backside. He gets a beautiful two-man knockup, forcing Yuki to the back. And CozQ, he doesn't have Shimpo anymore, so he ends up losing his life too. Then with Yuki and Kikis forced off the back of the pit, you've now got Amazing and Dreams left inside with the Baron being like, ah, crumbs. There are 4 enemies there that we have to try and fight, and we are not strong enough, so they just have to give away the Baron. Yeah. And it was just really good patience from Splyce, recognizing we know what you want to do, we know that we have the advantage here, you're the ones that want to commit to this Baron, and we are in a better position to steal it than you are. So we just got to be patient, and that's exactly what they were, and they ended up coming out ahead.
And for Splyce, for any team, honestly, that is making changes, is making transitions, like having lost their coach in the previous week, you could forgive them for making some mistakes in execution, even if the coach is not in their ears during the game. But it seems like Splyce has not missed a beat against the Monkeys right now, and they're looking for the end game. Big lead for this team, 7,000. Couple of Drakes, that Baron buff, and it's all on the bot side. Pretty easy to just keep pushing it in, and Monkeys giving ground.
Bottom half of Splyce's jungle, Mysterious Monkey's jungle rather, now being cleared out by Splyce.
Well, you could forgive it, it's now Splyce's jungle.
It is now Splyce's jungle, that is quite right. They have the Baron, they don't have TP, so they're not looking to play 1-3-1, they're just starting to group up. With this kind of a gold advantage, they're pretty confident they'll win the 5v5, and I agree with them. I think that's a very fair assumption. They're actually going to go back. There's only a minute left on the Baron, and so far they haven't been able to take any turrets with it. So we'll see what they still can do. I think they want to refresh a lot of their wards and spend some of the gold that they have. Interesting. Saw Kobbe buy a Vamp Scepter, go back. Oh, okay, he's changed your last wish for this day. Okay, he said, oh,
and the Vamp Scepter.
Well,
I mean, he's a rich man at this point. But how about Kobbe this game? Because he has been exactly where he's needed to on this Xayah. And you know, like, Yuki obviously is a very explosive element to the team as well, but on a Tristana, you have to take a few more risks, I feel like, and when they put Kobbe on the Splyce side, you know, on a Xayah that, you know, doesn't have to always fully commit into the front of the fight, or necessarily can get caught like the Kog'Maw last week, he looks like a very different carry.
I also think that it's worth highlighting that HGK made that game difficult for Kobbe too, right? And when you are on a Xayah, you have so much more mobility with your ulti. You synergize really nicely with the Rakan, and he's just better set up for success, as you are alluding to. So I think you're right, like, he has had a much better performance this week, and I'm excited to see what Splyce can do with the rest of the series, because this is only game 1, and they're still looking to close things out.
Yep, looks like it's just Demolition Derby, though, trying to knock down towers. It's the 5th of the game for the Splyce side. As they now turn their attention towards the mid, we might have one last desperate fight from the Mysterious Monkeys. But you've got to think that there's not a lot this team can do other than look forward to game 2.
Well, there's still the possibility of a big fight going in their favor. We have seen them get those good picks here and there. They were close to getting the Baron themselves. So Mysterious Monkeys, still a possibility. But, you know, we have to kind of backtrack to this whole Katarina pick. You know, we talked a lot about how I think the Cassio would have been good. I still think the Cassio in this comp would have been better, personally. And I hope moving into game 2, they put a little bit more priority on it, because especially, like, everything in the draft was kind of indicating that's what they were going for. And remember how we talked about how I think Kikis went for a few selfish picks in the past, things like the Jax, not necessarily the Renekton, but
now it's the CozQ.
Yeah, now it's shifted over to CozQ a little bit, and I think that if they just picked more for the team, they would have been in a slightly better position. So we will see. The game isn't quite over yet. They are at a pretty significant deficit, and it's safe to say that Splyce are poised to end this game, but they're taking their time doing it. So far, they've just walked their way through the tier 2 towers across the map, and now breaking into the actual base becomes much harder. So they may very well wait for Elder Dragon or Baron to spawn, because their siege is decent, but you have to remember that Tristana's wave clear is pretty good. There's a big risk of getting caught by Shen taunt or Maokai root, so they're showing a lot of respect still to the Mysterious Monkeys.
And that has always been some part of Splyce's identity as a team. They don't like to take big, massive risks. Like, you got to remember back to their first couple of splits in the LCS, including their summer last year, where they made a run at Worlds, and they didn't necessarily like to go for a big, flashy finish. They just pushed their advantage in until they had a massive amount of minions, and they just end the game off the back of it. Looks like that is what we're in for here. Some attempts further by the Mysterious Monkeys to try and get a catch-up, but it's not going to be easy.
I think this was super risky from CozQ to go Leandri's second.
Would it be risky to go Mikhail's second?
It would be, yes. But he's going to get the Void Staff, and I like the fact that he is actually moving off to a side lane fairly often to keep them pushed out. He knows he has TP, so he can join the fray should he need to. There's such a big level difference between them. You can just see the gold difference as well. CozQ gets chunked out.
Oh, there we go. Twisted advance. They're going to look to try and delete Mikyx right here, but he's got a big shield on. The Braum ulti, he's able to dash away from it. Now they're able to turn back in, tag in for round 2, looking for CozQ, but his health bar was preserved for just a moment. Courtesy of Kikis getting the Stand United on top of him. Doesn't matter, they still take down Amazing all the same. And Splyce says, I think we can go in to finish this game off easy peasy. Kobbe is godlike in this game. Now it's Dreams, CozQ, Kikis all running for their lives. Featherstorm comes out, pulled back in. Down goes Dreams, a double kill for Kobbe. And it's just CozQ and Kikis. Minions marching into the base at 36.5 minutes. Splyce have cracked it open.
Splyce, they get a great fight in the mid lane. They come away with all 5 members alive. Sencux with a great ultimate to split off the Mysterious Monkeys, and now they're looking for more kills.
CozQ looking around the side. One more desperate charge. The Death Lotus is there. He can't quite take down CozQ. That's a big shield, and the last Nexus turret is going to fall. Sorry, Monkeys, but there's nothing mysterious about this one. Splyce take a clear-cut Game 1 victory.
Good game one there from Splyce. Playing much more towards what they had a lot of success with in the past, with a few new sprinkles in there. We saw a lot of early gank focus in the middle lane, making sure that Sencux had a healthy laning phase and trying to shut down the Katarina from snowballing. We also saw them actually put a lot more focus into the top tower to try and deny that level 6 play from the Shen down bot. And we also saw them play the 1-3-1 a little bit more. There was a bit of a risky team fight in the middle lane, which could have gone horribly wrong, but Mysterious Monkeys, they overcommitted, they overplayed, and Splyce ended up turning it in their favor.
Went horribly well.
Yes, it ended up going massively well for them, especially, and I do want to praise them for how they played that Baron fight, because it was very clean to see they didn't overcommit, they were super patient, they were always aware of what Mysterious Monkeys were trying to do, and they were the ones that actually ended up walking away with that big objective.
Yeah, just better game sense, and we're able to pull out the victory in game number 1. Now, after a very slow start, the game exploded with some close fights, so here are Quick Shot and Officio to tell you more.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Yes, I mean, it was a steady start. It was a start that I think Splyce were fairly comfortable with. Their team comp, their play just felt a level above Mysterious Monkeys.
Yeah, 100%. I think they looked at a draft and they're like, okay, Mysterious Monkeys, they want to play Katarina. Now, again, I love when Katarina gets picked because she's always fun to watch in every single fight. Even if she's 1-5, you're kind of like, ooh, where's Katarina? You know what's happening. Problem, I think, for CozQ in a game like this is you look at the Splyce's side and there's like CC and basically every champion that can annoy Katarina in these fights. There's an exhaust as well. And of course, there's quite a few tanks, which Katarina doesn't really want to deal with either.
So what you're trying to say is the team comp from Splyce does very well at stopping Katarina, and that's part of the reason CozQ struggled and why he ended with 1-6-2.
Exactly. That was definitely part of it. I think Splyce actually just had a really well-rounded standard draft in this meta that is great. Early jungler, or early ganking possibilities from your jungler, who's also a tank.
Was it level 2 Jarvan gank mid?
It was,
gets flash.
Then he returned.
There you go.
Got a first blood.
So, Officio, controlled game. It never really felt like Splyce were under a lot of pressure. Some kudos to Wunder for playing that side lane well, but break down some of the team fights for me, because that was where Splyce really started to outshine Mysterious Monkeys. We've got a replay that I want to bring up onto your screen, and tell me what you liked and disliked about how Splyce played this.
Well, so what I like here is the fact that right now when Splyce see CozQ engages, it actually instantly just back away with Wunder and Trashy doing the first part of the ulti, and then they just re-engage right after, saying now Katarina is useless. And you see in a fight like this here, the chain CC from Splyce is fantastic, and when CozQ, after blowing his ulti on 2 tanks, end up re-engaging, there's nothing left in the tank for him. Like, that was a bad analogy. I already said tanks, but there's nothing left for CozQ to really do. So I just love the fact that they see CozQ jump them, pop his ulti, they all step away. They're like, nah, let him spin. We don't care. As soon as it's done, they're like, let's re-engage.
And of course, the man of this game, in my mind, Kobbe, his Xayah was fantastic. There was multiple fights throughout the course of the game where he dodged a lot of key abilities, dealt a lot of damage. He just played really well.
He did play really well. I also still want to give some credit to Mysterious Monkeys in these fights here, because even when they were down, they were getting a lot of very close back and forths. And like the second replay could have been a Mysterious Monkeys Baron. But then in the very, very end, you know, it goes over to Splyce. So I think a lot of these different fights we got to see in this game were actually much closer than I anticipated when I saw a 1-5 Katarina, you know, entering these fights.
Yeah, really, really difficult for CozQ. Of course, this Baron team fight that we'll get up onto your screen in a moment started off, of course, with a pick onto the Splyce members, and it started 4v5.
Exactly, so it's 4v5, and at this point you're kind of like, oh wait, Mysterious Monkeys, they're doing it, they have 3 items on Yuki, they're actually getting the Baron low, but once again, keep your eye on CozQ here. When he tries to enter the fight, he gets CC'd by Mikyx first of all, so he can't really go in because Kikis' taunt also misses. He tries to then finally go in after, but he's already poked down. He instantly gets exhausted once again by Mikyx, and it's just so easy to take him down. Also because Monkeys, 2 fights in a row we just saw right there, were not able to actually set up the engage with tanks first, follow up with Katarina. It was Katarina going on her own twice, getting exhausted and very easy to then take her down. So the synergy wasn't there.
It's like you said, Mysterious Monkeys, they just had not enough in the tank.
The tank.
Something we talked a lot about off-air was the lack of primary engage and the fact that a lot of the Monkeys team comp was like secondary engage, follow-up, you know, the Maokai, the Braum, for example. Looking ahead now at game 2, is this something that is very easy to change? Because something else you mentioned about the draft and the team comps is how Splyce seemed to just have Mysterious Monkeys' number. A lot of the picks went in their favor. The draft came out in the Splyce favor.
Yeah, I think if you're Mysterious Monkeys, going into the next draft right here, I think drafting, so Maokai, Braum, Shen, well, there are 3 very good frontliners, as you highlighted right there. Like, none of them are the guy you send in first.
Yeah.
I think a change you can have there is things like a Gragas can become the replacement, because he is a guy you can use as a front engage. You could have, in this case, here put the Maokai top lane and still drafted, you know, a Gragas jungle or Sejuani jungle to add a bit more engage to your team. Because really, when you have Katarina, what you want to have is a bunch of guys, beefy guys, who goes in first. They're in the backline. The backline is like, damn, we got to deal with these tanks. And then when you're busy trying to kill this tank, Katarina shows up from the flank and like almost one-shots you.
You need the distraction power.
They could have done it with this. It was a hard comp to execute. Like Kikis had a few taunts here and there, not really landing. The synergy wasn't really on point. But I think a little bit easy engage like a Gragas could have helped that comp here. Could
have helped the comp. Difficult comp to pull off for a team that is locked into promo tournament. Maybe optimistic, maybe practice. I mean, we don't know 100%.
It could definitely be practice, yeah.
For Splyce, good, confident win. Let's quickly look forward as we go to game 2. Do you expect big change in the draft? We didn't see Nasus. We didn't see Urgot.
We're not going to see Urgot.
We didn't expect to see Urgot.
We're not going to see Urgot.
Okay.
I mean, if someone is going to play Nasus, it could be Wunder.
It would be so fun.
He loves sitting in that side lane. It could definitely be him, but sadly no Nasus either. No new picks, actually. I looked at his draft, I'm like, yeah, every single pick here was last patch too.
Well, let's see whether or not we get new picks in the next game. We have to find out. Enough from us. Splyce, they can take a big step towards playoffs, of course. If they win now and Vitality lose tomorrow, Splyce make playoffs. Let's see if they can do it after the break.